So, how long have you had this as your backdrop? Is this a pandemic sort of production design with all the boxes behind you?
This is a recent development. I actually just moved and just got a house, so I actually have a place to house all my wares. So this was within the past year. I finally
Congratulations.
have, yeah, thank you. Finally have a spot to kind of showcase everything and plot everything out.
Yeah. How was the move with all your stuff?
It wasn't as bad as you'd think. I actually got away without even using a moving company,
Wow.
so which is pretty incredible. But I had most of my stuff in my condo that I lived in, and
Uh-huh.
then the other half was at my parents'.
Uh-huh.
So every time I visited them, I'd take a car full of stuff. So it took 10 trips and they live an hour and a half away. So you do the math. It was definitely took a while to get everything over. But when it was all said and done, it was like, I didn't want to like get everything put here in one shot.
Yeah.
Because even now it's like pretty overwhelming to kind of, maneuver through everything and kind of understand where everything is, how I want to set everything up. So
Uh-huh.
it's definitely a process.
How did it all start? You didn't start with sneakers when you were a boy, did you? There had to have been something else that you got into that kind of set the whole collector bug off, huh?
Yeah, it's honestly I blame my brothers. I'm one of seven, including me. So I have two older brothers and a younger brother. So my two older brothers were big into action figures. So
Uh-huh.
GI Joe, MOTU,
Uh-huh.
Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles. So all that stuff, like from as long as I can remember, I instantly had the bug.
Yeah.
So, thinking about like wanting to be like my brothers or wanting to play with the same things that my brothers had.
Yeah.
Then I started getting my own collections when I was older. I think the first like actual collection I had was the real Ghostbuster figures.
Uh-huh.
So that really like, and it's funny too, because like I always used to keep the back of the card,
Yeah.
always super cognizant of every single person, and I wanted every single one.
Yeah.
Like I always had to like, cobble that collection together and make sure like I was a completionist from like, the age of 5. So that definitely carried over as I got older. As I aged, Star Wars became a big thing, especially when they re-released all of them in the theaters. I think it was 97.
Uh-huh.
And the Power of the Force line reemerged in 95. So
Mm-hmm.
those two things coinciding, big into Star Wars, started collecting every single one of those. You had episode 1 come out in 99, so got all that stuff. So like, all the big like cultural toy properties that have come out, I've pretty much collected. Yeah, I mentioned Ninja Turtles, but that's probably my biggest one to this day. I'm still diehard TMNT and like, hunt down that stuff and, going for the more premium stuff now. But, I could ramble on about all the different toy lines, but that was my start to kind of wrap up your initial question.
I remember when the real Ghostbusters came out, those that figure line in the cartoon, they're really detailed. They had those kind of like little gimmicks for each figure, and the ghosts were cool.
Right.
And they were they were it was almost as if they were out to just crush the other Ghostbusters cartoon that came out, the one with the
Yeah.
gorilla. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. The Filmation one. So
Yes.
those are actually worth a lot of money.
They're good toys. The toys are cool.
They're actually amazing toys.
Yeah.
Ironically have never gotten into them. I don't know if it's because of like a subconscious like loyalty to the RGB line, but
Yeah.
I never went down that road. But they're amazing. I like them.
Yeah. But Ninja Turtles, I mean, do you pay attention? Like, did you like check out all the stuff that was releasing at Comic-Con or all the previews
Oh
and
my
stuff?
God. Yeah. So I've also like, as I've gotten older and been doing this for a while, I have had to create like sets of rules for collecting.
Let's hear them.
I am a completionist. So I set things into categories. So if something is new vintage, so basically if a company's making something that's like basically a vintage version, but it's new, I'm not going to collect it because I have the old version of it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that like NECA is doing, like I love it. It's amazing, but I would quickly go broke, like hunting all that stuff on top of all the things that I'm trying to get in the sneaker world, in the trading card world. Like I have a lot of things on my hit list that I'm trying to check off. So, you got to pick your spots when you get to a point where like things are like pretty premium and expensive when you're like further down the road in collecting.
Yeah. Masters of the Universe and Turtles people are not going to have an easy year next year at all.
No, and the thing is too, with all the vintage stuff, like that has been creeping up big time, especially for like the Ninja Turtle stuff. Like
Uh-huh.
it used to, like 10, 15 years ago, it used to be super cheap. Like you could get carded figures for like, under $10. Everything was pretty like easy to obtain. And then, slowly but surely, as that franchise has like kept up its momentum, like the collectors have just been growing and growing, and people are going back and trying to like cobble together collections that they had when they were little.
Yeah.
So that stuff's like strongly building, like aftermarket prices are like exploding.
What are you on the hunt for now in terms of figures? I know we have a lot to get to because, as you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, and as your Instagram shows, I mean, you go deep. You have a vast collection of sneakers. You mentioned cards, but even like Garbage Pail Kids cards too. I think I saw on one of your
Right.
stories too. Old gear like vintage like sportswear, which is really really cool. I mean, you are like a tried and true collector. You love to amass quantities of things. I love it.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of people think of me or know me as a sneaker collector, and
Mhm.
I like those would probably be the first things I would get rid of and be okay with
Really?
if I had to like prune my collection and get rid of stuff. Like I don't like I love them, and like that journey's been, I started like when I was in seventh or eighth grade, really collecting and like storing them and like meticulously caring for them.
You would
And
keep them then? Back then, seventh
yeah,
grade, you were collecting sneakers then?
yeah,
Man,
and
I would just wear them until they were beat and then throw them out. Wow, you kept
I
all the
would
Agassi stuff and all the Jordan stuff and all that stuff.
so just to give you like some time frame there, this was like the late 90s. So
Oh, okay,
retros
okay,
were just starting to come out. So I'm 36. So I'm
yeah,
I'm in what I would call the retro era. So
yeah.
the golden age in my mind of sneakers is like the mid 80s when, Jordan was on the rise, all that stuff was building up. You had Agassi coming on board, you had Bo Jackson, you had Tinker designing most of the big time Nikes in that era. So once that wave kind of subsided, a retro wave started in the late
Mm,
90s, early 2000s. And that was like cresting just as I was getting old enough to make my own money,
yeah,
doing like, mowing lawns, doing all the stereotypical like things a kid who has 7 siblings would do to get money
yeah, yeah,
to buy this stuff, because my parents weren't getting it for me. Like they would give me like, maybe $20 to get a pair of sneakers for like the season.
yeah.
But I would have to like, do work or work around the neighborhood to like get money to pay for the rest of it if I wanted to get something that was nicer. So that's why I would take care of it. It was
Yeah.
like a luxury item to me. It was something that I was like going to cherish and like make sure it was pristine.
Yeah.
So that kind of carried on. So because I was so like meticulously caring for these, when I would get another pair, the last pair wasn't that messed up. So
Yeah.
then, you get another pair and then you start to accumulate them. Then once I got to like maybe my sophomore year of high school, I started doing like home renovation work and like actually making like pretty decent money, I guess, for a high schooler.
Great.
And then I really like dialed it up 10 notches with buying sneakers. Like I was literally like going to malls all across New Jersey, like hunting stuff and like, going down to like sales racks and like Nike outlets and being like, okay, this is on sale for $20. I'm going to get 3 pairs. And, I don't know if they're ever going to come out again. So fuck it. I want like a lifetime supply of them. So
Right.
that was kind of my mindset, was like, I didn't know if they were ever going to come out again. So I would kind of like hoard them in a sense, that like thinking kind of foolishly that I would get around to wearing them all and wearing them
Right.
all out. And I think the ironic thing is, like, say I bought 3 pairs of something in 2004, like I've barely worn the first pair. And
Yeah.
then I have the 2 pairs pristine, unworn, that I've had for now 18 years.
Right.
I like stuff like that. Like I understand how silly it is, and like I kind of see the irony there, but it's like habits like that have like just kept me going, and like I still do stuff to that day.
What was your grail back in the day, like when you were coming up and you started buying your own sneakers during that retro phase? What was the one thing?
It was different because like I wasn't at that time, I wasn't like digging back into the archives and going back. I was more of like, let me see what's out now and hunt
Uh-huh.
what's on the shelves. Um, and like or let me go see what's on sale and I could get super cheap because
Mhm.
I like the model, and like that whole era, like made me go back and look at all of the back catalogs of what Nike did.
Mm-hmm.
And it started to get me super interested in all the stuff that hasn't been retroed yet.
Right.
All the stories behind them and all the lore behind all these shoes. So that kind of like exposure to these things opened up the horizons and opened up the doors. And then eBay is something I haven't mentioned yet, but that was like again another just like catalyst for me just going like completely off the wall with like collecting stuff, because
Mm-hmm.
that opened the door for me to then start looking for things that weren't on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could really start going into the back catalogs and really curating what I was going after. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of like my transition from, kid collector, just completing toy lines because they're
Mm-hmm.
awesome and they're fun to play with. And I just like lining them up and seeing them all complete, to, hey, I'm getting sneakers because like I think they're really cool, but I'm going to take really good care of them,
Mm-hmm.
but I want more. And then starting to be like, wait a minute, like there's sets I can put together of this stuff. And like, I also like the way they all look lined up together. And there's something about like, for me, I think like looking back at everything, it's all about the hunt for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I truly enjoy like finding something I don't have, and then trying to find it by hook or by crook, one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. I get it. Um, did you have those NYC dunks that I saw on your page? Were those bought when they first came out?
Yes. So I think those were the
I love those. Those
are
are
you
like
talking about the Carolina ones with the
yeah.
NYC on them? Yeah. So there's a retro of those with the goldenrod colorway, the black and yellow with the
Yes.
NYC as well. I don't have those, but the Carolina ones are amazing. Those are my favorite
Yeah.
ones. So like that whole era of dunks was really the first retro wave
Yeah.
of dunks.
Yeah.
And really like their coming out party as far as like, a lifestyle shoe,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of coincided with Nike releasing a lot of different sneakers in a lot of weird and different colorways.
Yeah.
From I'd say like 98 to 2005 ish, it almost seemed like they were just like throwing stuff at the wall and just like,
Nonstop.
releasing mass swaths of sneakers in many different colorways,
Yeah.
like the Air Trainer SCs, the Air Force 2s, like Delta Forces, like just things that, are questioning why they were releasing them. And I didn't even mention the Air Force Ones, since those are so like ubiquitous and kind of like have been retroed since they came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought. But I think like that whole era too, like so much of that stuff would go on sale that I would just gobble it all up, and like it was so easy to get.
That's what I was kind of getting at. I assume you were on Nike Talk early. I was on Nike Talk around 03. So I was into, I didn't consider it collecting, but I was, as you consider that wave of like Agassi and Jordan and Bo Jackson, I'm 44. So like that hit like right when I was coming of age. Right. So, but I wouldn't collect them. I would just wear them. Like I only had like one pair of sneakers. So like I would just wear them to the dirt and then throw them out and then get another pair. So that I didn't get into like the kind of lifestyle of having more than like 3 pairs of sneakers at once, even more than 1 pair of sneaker at once, until like, I would have to say when I discovered Nike Talk, which was like 03 or something. And I started seeing I got the bug, all the different colors, all the different models, and the idea that they were hard to get, which was very alluring. And just they just hit at the right time. Like the dunk is such like a timeless silhouette for me, and they're just like never go out of style for me. So to see like all like the old ones that you have is really exciting for me, because I think they're, on top of that, they're still wearable. Like a lot of sneakers from if you have them from the 90s, they crumble. You cannot wear them, but with dunks, you can be wearing a pair of dunks 20, 30 years, I think, like I've never seen a pair of crumbled dunks. If anything, I've seen like the leather come off of the sole, but that's not bad at all.
No, you could resole this, and you hit the nail on the head as far as like longevity and wearability and a collectible. And like, dunks hit that mark. Jordan 1s hit that mark.
Jordan 1s. Yeah.
Sneaker with a polyurethane midsole is dust basically after, 10-ish years. So I have so many sneakers that I'm just like sadly watching like Father Time consume. But like it's a part of the like game, and like I get it. And like it's kind of like a weird thing to own something that is currently worth a ton of money and you know it's basically going to turn to dust. It's like a
Mhm.
very like strange phenomenon as far as like collecting goes. And most other stuff you could kind of protect from that for the most part, but
Yeah.
sneakers are a very unique thing in that like the true like OG collectors who have some of these models, like the Agassiz, like
Mhm.
Jordan 3s, Jordan 4s, stuff like that, you're basically holding something that's like gonna turn to dust over time. So,
It's like a
you know,
sandcastle at the beach.
right. It looks beautiful when it's first crafted, and then,
Yeah.
it's a fleeting moment. So that is a weird part, and something that like is always in the back of my mind is like, why am I subjecting myself to this? But it's all fun. Like I again, like I think it comes back to like the thrill of the hunt, and like I just love to like, hunt down these models and go off of a checklist of like, okay, I saw in this catalog that they made this. Let me see if I could eventually
Mhm.
get that. I just completed the full set of original Moabs,
Nice.
um, where the I have them next to me. I don't. This is a podcast, obviously, so the people can't see.
Well, I run a video too. I do a YouTube too where we can see. So don't let
Oh,
that
great.
stop you. Oh, those are
Okay,
nice.
so this is the white black
Never,
pair,
never seen those.
right, super rare, and like they're available. Like if you really look for them, you'll find them eventually. But I wanted them brand new in the original box with the wrapping paper, with the tag still on. So it took me a very long time to get these, and this was the last pair of Moabs I needed from the original run. So I was super stoked to get them. I got them the past year, and it's rare for me to have things like that where I'm like viciously hunting them down and can't get them. So it was super satisfying for me to get these.
Congratulations. How's the sole on those? Are they deteriorating?
No, and like I don't know what like secret elixir they put in the Moab midsoles, but every vintage Moab I have, the midsole is fine.
Oh,
I'm
that's good.
thinking some sort of Phylon, or I'd have to go in the catalogs and look and see what like Nike said the material was, but they're super durable. I'm sure I've seen people wear them. I don't know if they're just like saying there and kind of put a lot of people just put their shoe on for the Instagram pic and then
Sure.
like take it back and like, oh, I wore these today and they didn't. But yeah, I bet you could wear those and they'd be okay.
My a little issue that I have is with my sneakers is that I only like really go to the grocery store or like I take my daughter to school. It's like I don't have a place to really wear them, so I have to kind of force myself
Yes.
to put them on and go just like make an excuse to wear them, which is fun. I mean, the act of wearing them, even if I'm not really doing anything, is still fun for me. But I don't really have like I find myself being like, oh, I'm not gonna wear those because I'm not really going somewhere, or like, oh, I'm gonna be at like a park and it's like grass and sand. So like, I feel you. Like sometimes like you can have a sneaker and just you never get around to wearing it.
Yeah, and I mean that happened to me, and like I have to go out of my way to like wear my shoes. I have to say,
Right.
okay, like I am not going to put on this like low top Jordan 1 all white again because it's easy to slip on, comfortable, and I don't have to think about it. Let me wear one of my like 600 pairs of sneakers and
Yes.
actually enjoy them. But to the other side of that, like I enjoy brand new shoes and I enjoy how they look and I enjoy collecting them like that. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people give other people shit for that. And like, they're like, oh, wear your sneakers, or like, that's not the way to do it. But like, unless someone's paying for my shoes and like, buying me a pair of shoes and telling me what to do with them, like, it's my collection and like,
For
that's how I
sure.
want to curate it. So there's a huge like wave of people though who are like not into like keeping things dead stock and like don't really understand the motive behind it.
Yeah. For me, a lot of the times it's like I think to myself, like, oh, I'll wear these, like, a friend of mine throws a party or something, I'll wear these for the first time. But like my friend's not gonna throw a party. So I just end up like not wearing them. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So, there is something too. Maybe I should just like wear them to go get my groceries. Maybe I should
Yeah.
just like flex at the grocery store.
It's funny. I wore a pair of Union Jordan 1s, which are like a newer Jordan 1 collab that came out that are
Yeah.
pretty expensive. And some dude like ran over them with his grocery cart wheel and it literally left like a black skid mark over the toe. I was like, yeah, that's why I don't wear these like the place. But it's like stuff like that where I'm just like, of course, the one time like
Yeah.
I do want to wear something like that out in public.
So you said you had about 600 pairs?
Yeah, between 5 and 600. Like as I was counting and bringing them all in, I think that's kind of where I netted out at.
Amazing. And that's taken you what, 20 years to amass, would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely not been overnight. Like it's been, I'd say consistently since like I would put 99 as the year that I legitimately started like keeping stuff and was like
Yeah.
trying to like not wear them that much.
Man, I brought up those New York Dunks because I was living in New York at the time that those came out. And like I just wasn't on the wave, but I remember seeing them and being like, those are kind of cool. I think they were the goldenrod ones. And I just remember like not being into them. And they even like went on sale after a while. And
Oh,
no, I regret not getting those, and I regret not getting the Haze Dunks. Those are my two Nike regrets. Those two are the ones that have stayed in my mind since I've seen them.
so the Haze Dunks, that has been another white whale. I just for whatever reason, like I just never got around to getting either the highs or the lows, and like
Huh?
it'd be like, oh, I'll get them, next month, or there's something else I don't want to
Yeah.
like spend the money on them, and it's been kind of like one of those 20-year things where I actually really want them, but I just never pulled the trigger on them, and they're super expensive now, and I like
Yeah.
honestly don't think I would prioritize those over like some other stuff I'm looking for. But I love that shoe, and like that era kind of spins into the next big era of collecting for me, which was the Dunk SBs,
Yep.
which like is a big chunk of my collection and a big chunk of my like I'd say like age 17 to 22 just hunting and going around and like actually going out in the wild, finding these things at stores and skate shops, and having a blast like that. Like some of my best sneaker memories are just like hopping in my Accord and driving around, just finding these things, not knowing what's going to be in the store.
Yes.
Getting to the shop, seeing it on the shelf, and just like buying it right from there. I watched Dunks going from retail to slowly creeping up by $10, then 20, then 30, then 70, then the place is charging 200 for them. So I watched it go from like, a cool niche little thing to something where the shops are super cognizant of like the aftermarket. And like, I know people complain about the resale and like all of the stuff that's going on today, but that stuff's always been around. It's just
always been around.
It's just a different platform, and it's the whole sneaker world has exponentially grown. So the selling of it has grown along with it, and the tools to do it are a lot easier.
Mhm.
But even with toys and everything like that, like I used to collect, well, I still do, but I'm done with them. The WWF Hasbro figures. I know you had Matt Cardona on here talking about those, and I have every single one carded.
Wow.
I have every single one loose. And I bought those when I was little. And that was one of my big passions was finding wrestling figures.
The little tiny ones, right? You're talking about those, right?
Yeah, yes. The little ones, the little plastic ones with like the action move.
You push them down and they jump up or something.
Right. There's the jumpers, the gorilla press one. So like that was the stuff that also was like a big collecting point for me. But I would go to flea markets and I would go to toy shows even back then in the early 90s with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
People were scalping them. Like people were literally like charging like $50 for a loose Andre the Giant figure. Yeah. And I'd be like, what the hell? Like I'm a little kid and like you're trying to like charge me that for a figure I need. Like it's then it started to click with me that like this stuff is worth money. Yeah. There's scarcity and like, hold on to these and kind of cherish them. So, just a little anecdote of like me starting to have the gears turn and kind of understand from a super young age that like hold on to this stuff and take care of it, because I really liked it and I did want to hold on to it long term and like not just move on to the next thing. Like all of these things that I collect are oddly from the same era. Like I hear this like weird like late 80s early to mid 90s nexus of stuff around me, and I think it is from truly like a place of nostalgia, like connecting with my brothers, just connecting with pop culture at the time. And I think it's just kind of mushroomed up into now. And the other weird thing is that everyone's still making shit from all those eras. So like
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
All the stuff from like when I was little is like just as popular as ever. So it's almost like grown up with me and giving me the opportunity to kind of like continue on the path with it.
You see that I've faced that stark reality, especially with seeing children like going to, like I mentioned, I dropped my daughter off at school. She's in elementary school, but kids are into Star Wars, kids are into Masters of the Universe, kids are into G.I. Joe, Transformers, and it's like all stuff from the 80s.
Right.
There's like, few things, there's other properties that are around, but the fact that those things are still in the conversation and still in the culture really says so much about them. Like there was something very dynamic and collectible about those toys and the things from that era you're talking about. I mean, let's zero in on toys for a little bit, because like there's nothing like 80s toys. You see toys from then, you see toys from the 70s. They're tall, they're kind of awkward, they're all pretty much the same mold,
Right.
give or take. You have Star Wars toys, which is a completely different thing.
Right.
That set it all off. But then in the 80s, you have like this explosion of like character and colors and muscles, and everything just kind of elevated. But the sculpts of the things were very, very cool. They were truly like, they recalled a lot of movement and a lot of action. So I'm not surprised that they've endured as long as they have, but there is such a magic quality to them that really extends. What is it? It's 40 years later.
Yeah, it's
still
wild.
Releasing it. People are still going nuts. More than ever, people are going crazy for it.
Right. And I think you kind of nailed it with like the magic to it. And I think what the toys in the 80s did were they took the like lack of articulation and the kind of rigid dullness of the toys that predated them, and they took like what I consider now is to be like the hyper articulation and the over details and like the overly decoed figures, and it's just the sweet spot of like, cartoonish proportions, like bright vibrant colors, hand sculpted and hand drawn from the jump, and like all of those things are like, in my mind, like the best representation of every toy line.
Yeah, I think too much articulation isn't cool with toys. I have friends that are into Mafex and like highly articulated stuff. You get them in cool poses and really hyper detail, but I think there's something is lost when you have too much detail with a toy.
I agree. It kind of takes something out of it, and I'm not sure what, because like in theory, it's really awesome that you could like make your like Leonardo turtle figure do anything now, but like I don't know, I prefer my like squatting, strange, like grimacing Leo, and like that's just the way it is, and like it's really hard to pinpoint why. But I really think that speaks so like, I don't know, like well to like how everything in that era just culminated to like a boiling point, and like so many things from that era are just like still magical to this day.
And you see them pitted up against toys and collectibles and whatever from the different decades that were before it and after it. There's something special about the sauce of those properties that came out during that time. There's something about the way that they were made. There's just something so different. And it probably is because there were more hands involved than there were, than it was like made up on a screen or 3D modeled on a screen to come out. I don't know what it is, but you look at that style of toy making, specifically toys, if we're talking about it, and then you see all the stuff that came after it. There's no comparison, really. They've been overdoing it ever since.
Right. And like I think there was a lull too after that. I think like, I think it peaked in the early 90s, and then it got kind of crappy for a while, where like there wasn't too many great toy lines, and like the Power of the Force 2 line, the Star Wars line, was kind of the only thing that was like, really a big toy line to collect.
But Star Wars is different. Star Wars is totally different. That's like a different thing altogether. That's different league.
Right. Yeah. And that's like a property and a franchise unto itself, and that's going to like self-perpetuate no matter what.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I could get in on Star Wars too, but I think you could save that for someone who's like a little bit more well versed in that. Even though I do have the full 77 to 85 set.
Man.
So that was something that like probably 10, 15 years ago, I just slowly started chiseling away and getting them.
So this really started when you were a teenager. Were you aware that you were collecting? I know you mentioned we touched on this, but let's dive a little deeper in that. When you were of that age and you saw all the stuff on the back of the box, collect them all sort of stuff, were you seriously like, I'm going to put these on a shelf and I am going to collect them? Or did you play with them, and then when you were done playing with them, you just took care of them and put them away? You took care of your toys sort of thing?
I played with them to an extent, but I was like super careful, and I would make sure I didn't lose any weapons. had them all in little sandwich bags with their weapons included, so the weapon wouldn't like float away and get lost. Was just super meticulous with everything, and I did stand them up on shelves. I remember like my WWF Hasbro figures. I would literally call them my like collection, and like had them all set up and like kind of like for I guess I was like 7 or 8 at the time. Like that was my world. That was like everything I was building was within those, because like that's all I was. I was obsessed. I would call Toys R Us every other day asking if they got a new shipment in. I would call all the local malls and call KB. Like that was how I got my information and how I would find out if they were getting a new shipment in. Like, so this was like, all pre-internet stuff. Like I'm sure the kid in the stock room who was answering my call was like, oh, this kid again is calling. Yep. But it's funny because I then would do that with dunks.
Yes.
Like I would call the skate shops and like, oh, did you get the lucky dunks in? Did you get the unluckies in? Because they didn't have release dates. So dunk SBs would like kind of drop randomly and just kind of like pop up in the store. So it wasn't like today where like you could go online or you had the sneakers app and it was like, all right, this Saturday, these 8 sneakers are coming out. It was more so like, okay, the store randomly got them, hurry up there or you're going to be screwed. Like big releases, Jordan retro, stuff like that. You could, that was all calendarized and ready. But like the SBs, I had no idea when these things were coming out. So it really was, you had to build relationships with these shops, get cool with them so that they knew you weren't a scalper or a reseller. And they understood that like you were a collector and that, they would either sometimes hold things for you if like you were really lucky. But sometimes like not charge you the $20 upsell that they started doing later on down the road. So that was another cool part of it, was just like, it kind of being on the ground and actually forging those relationships. But it just doesn't exist today. Like all that stuff now is online and on Instagram. And I don't think it's better or worse, to be honest. I
don't either. I was not the type of person to like go wait online for sneakers, which is probably why I lost out on things like Haze Dunks and other sorts of kicks that I wish I had. I just wasn't the type to ever kind of do that sort of thing. This isn't a place from judgment at all.
No.
It seems like there are people out there who actually forged some relationships on those lines, started businesses together on those lines, got inspired on those lines and camp out. So it's totally cool. But yeah, that I remember that time before like the sneakers app or even the Nike app, when you had to call or you had to just go and check it out or you had to go camp. A lot of times I would just throw my hands up in the air and be like, well, I guess I'm not getting those.
Yeah. And fortunately for me, like I used to live in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which was like closer to New York and like, more of a city environment. So like there was more of a demand for Jordans. When I turned 15, I moved to like the sticks in South Jersey, but there was a mall there that got every Jordan and all the SBs. So there was a skate shop in that mall. So I had it super easy.
Oh like, man.
I didn't have to really camp out for anything. Like I say, I drove around to different malls and stores because like I was actively hunting like stuff. But like if I wanted, say, the Jordan 3s in 2003, the white cements, like I could literally stroll up at like 10 a.m. as the door was opening, get my pair, and like little to no fanfare. And that was pretty common until I'd say like 2006 or 7, when things like kind of went wild. And that was the end of that. But
you had a good run.
I had a great run of just like prime, like, high school kid or like freshman in college, just running and gunning, getting whatever I wanted.
Oh man. Would you resell it all?
Not really. Like the only times I would ever resell would be if I truly was like, I don't need this many pairs of this and I foolishly bought them, or like I need to make some money to buy something that's like bigger. And like I have nothing against resellers. Like I bought a lot of things from resellers and like I'm thankful for them because they have stuff that I need. And it's a part of the game. Just kind of like what I was telling you before, like people have been doing this stuff for decades. Like this is nothing new. The tools are just more efficient to do it. So like, I think like there's a lot of hate on them. Obviously there's people that are like, kind of eye rolling over the top, annoying when it comes to that stuff. But for the most part, I think it's a necessary part of sneakers. And like, like there's always something else. I think that's the other thing that this generation, or I don't want to sound like an old man, but like, people that are modern collectors need to understand is that there's going to be a new thing. There's going to be a new wave. Like, expand your horizons a little bit and look outside of like what everyone's gravitating towards. Because that's honestly how I've gotten my craziest things, is like looking outside of where the pack is going. That's how I found like a Nike Seinfeld cash jacket, because I was just hunting like certain things, and like you stumble upon this stuff and then you're like, this is really cool. And then, eventually everyone else finds out about it and they're like, oh, that is really cool. And then they want to like spend big money on it. So a lot of that stuff happens organically if you're just hunting for things you actually love and care about. And that's kind of been my theme, is just like, once something kind of gets like too saturated, I'll kind of move away from it.
Yeah.
Let everyone kind of deal with it. And I'll move on to something that's like a little more like open season, and just a little less friction as far as collecting it goes. So that's another, I guess, like piece of advice, if you want to call it that, to anyone collecting, is like, there's going to be peaks and valleys for everything. So if you see something that's like going for crazy money and like, everyone's like rapidly trying to get it, move on to something else. There's plenty of other stuff out there.
Yeah, it's very easy to get wrapped up when you discover something new, especially if it's hot. Like, I can imagine like kids who are getting into sneakers, like you just want them all immediately, and the prices are so high now. Like, it's not, the barrier of entry is a lot more intense for somebody trying to get into sneakers in 2022.
Yeah, I remember like, in high school and stuff. And like, granted, again, this is like, I had like a job, like I was like, doing home renovation stuff with my family business. And $200 was like, holy shit, like, I don't want to spend that money for a pair of sneakers. Like, that was like capped to me. That was like the maximum I would be like comfortable spending. And like, fast forward to today, and people are spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on sneakers. And I get it. Like, it is crazy, but like, for certain things, if you really want it and you have the money, and it is truly that scarce, like, more power to you. Like, have fun.
I always go back and forth with the 80s stuff, because I do feel like there is magic to it. But I also have times when I'm like, was it just really good marketing, or was it actually pop art? Sometimes I can't tell, because of the manipulation between like you'd have the cartoon on, and then the commercial for the toy of the cartoon that you were watching came on at the perfect time. So that like, the cartoon was over, you're like, I got to go to the toy store and get it. But also, like, then you look at the toys and they're just so good with the accessories, and they got really good at like the sculpting of the faces and all the details, and like all those little things added up to something. I mean, you look at Masters of the Universe, and which came out before the cartoon. And I remember first seeing those, like my eyes nearly exploded at what I was looking at. Like, I've never seen like a merman figure before, seeing Skeletor for the first time. I mean, He-Man's classic Conan looking, but like some of these characters were like so off the wall and just so bizarre. And like, they begged you just to tear them out of the package and play with them. It was like, there's nothing really else. So I don't know if that's me being nostalgic and a victim of marketing, or if that is actually real.
I think it's all of it. I think it's this big stew of like emotions and like actual quality and imagination and all this stuff, and like all these indelible attributes that went into it. Like, my brother had, Stinkor actually stunk, the figure, like, yes. It smelled funny. And we have this ongoing joke, me and my brothers, that like, it smells like a cologne that actually exists. So every once in a while, you'll be at like the supermarket, or like be walking down the street, and you'd be like, that guy smells like Stinkor. And like, it's just like, it's been one of those things for the past like 30 plus years that like, you just, every once in a while, maybe like once a year, you'll run by a guy that like has this musk cologne or something that like literally smells like Stinkor. And like, once you know that smell, you never forget it.
I wonder if Mattel's going to release a Stinkor cologne eventually. They've done about everything else with He-Man, right?
That could be a SDCC exclusive for sure. I'm sure people would love to buy that.
So bear with me as we jump around, because you have a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get into the sportswear stuff, because you mentioned that Seinfeld jacket. I'm assuming that's the one right behind you.
Right. Yeah.
Is that the Nike? That's Nike.
Yeah. So I have a couple. Well, I have.
Yeah.
I went down the rabbit hole of getting, I don't know if you could see it very well on here. It's got the Seinfeld emblem. It's breaking ground since 1989. And then on the There's a Nike logo on the sleeve. So Nike was a sponsor of the show, and they provided the cast and crew. Jerry wore a lot of Nikes.
It's always laced.
Yeah, always laced. George wore the Cortezes. This is the pride and joy, though. This is the the Nike bomber jacket with suede sleeves.
Padded on the inside.
Yeah, like fully lined, just really nice, super heavyweight. Yeah. I have two of these that I got from messaging crew members and asking them if they had any of the stuff, and I wound up getting two denim jackets and two of the varsity crew jackets. And the jacket that I just had in my hands was the one that Larry David wears that in an episode of Curb.
Amazing.
It's the one, the actually very famous episode where he's at Dodger Stadium.
Great.
And I think there's another story to that where a guy gets acquitted for a murder in real life because they saw him on camera in that episode. So, and I'm jumping all over the place, but that jacket to me is like, again, like something I would never sell. Like, just such a cool thing to own and find. And, I think once people got wise to them, the prices of those started going pretty crazy. But again, like if you're looking for stuff that you truly like and kind of go down these rabbit holes, you're bound to find something that's like very off the grid and really cool.
What'd you get, a cast sheet? You got a crew sheet? How'd you contact crew members? Did you just look at the credits at the end of the show and hit the phone book? Or
so
internet?
No, it's not even that crazy. So Instagram has a few people that are part of the show that post about stuff. And then you can look at comments of people who are like, hey, I worked on it. I remember that, or I remember this. And then, you kind of play the game of like, okay, that person was on the show. Let me hit them up and see if they have anything. So there's a little detective work that goes in with that.
Wow. Bravo.
Instagram, great with that. LinkedIn is great with that. Don't want to give away all my trade secrets, but it's
good, Kevin. That's real good.
Yeah, it's all fair game. But yeah, you have to do that legwork. Yeah, like to get some of those things where, they're not something you'd walk into a store and get. It's something that A, you have to know it even exists, and B, you have to do a little bit of work to find the right person to talk to get it. Like on that same note, I have a couple of these Jordan shirts. I'll actually take one out so that you can get the full look at it. But this is a pretty famous shirt, if you want to call it that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Will Smith wore in an episode of Fresh Prince. He's doing like a stupid dance in the shirt.
Yeah. It's a killer shirt.
So it's an amazing shirt. The artwork on it is incredible. And I have two test prints of it. This is the black print where they tested the black run of ink. And then the other one is heavier red. And I got it from the Nike designer who worked on these.
Wow.
So this one you can see has like some heavier red tones on it.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
These are test prints. Like this was like, these are both one of a kind from a really cool shirt. That's like, you could call it iconic.
Do you wear that, or is that just for the collection?
I have a release version of the shirt that I do wear, and have that's just typical run of the mill, but still a great design, and that's a classic iconic design. So like stuff like that, like I think like kind of what we were talking about before, like the magic in the design and the artistry around it, like all of these things kind of have a common theme that they tie back to like either a cultural moment or something I care about or someone I care about. Another cool thing I have is this is a player edition pair of cleats made specifically for Ken Griffey Jr. This color never was released to the public in cleat form. They made a cleat for these that you could buy and wear that were white and black, but the teal or turquoise never came out to the public. This was only a pair that he wore. It has his size and it has the player tag in it. So these are like, it's a player exclusive shoe.
Incredible.
So again, I didn't pay that much money for these. Like for what, basically in my mind, like one of the greatest baseball players of all time to like be able to own a pair of shoes that were made exclusively for him. It's a really cool thing to like have. And it's not a Jordan player edition, but like to me, this is just as good as that as far as like, prestige of athlete goes.
For sure. Now, do you go in phases where like you go a little bit heavy on toys and then you get tired of toys for a little bit, go to sneakers and then do that and get tired of that for a little bit, and then go to sportswear,
Yeah.
cards. Do you collect comic books or anything like that?
I never got into the comic book world, and I'm not sure why, because it has everything I love, and it kind of like it encompasses all of my interests. But like, I guess I just like the physical like nature of like action figures and like sportswear and sneakers. But I mean, I also collect cards, so I guess like I don't really have an excuse. But I
Is
guess
it all at once for you? Is it all at once, all the time, everything, or do you take breaks and you kind of organize your focus and you're able to set aside headspace for certain aspects of the collection?
I think I'd like to think it's all at once, but like when I take a step back and look, I do get burned out with certain things. Like right now, I'm pretty not actively going after too many sneakers. There's just like I've kind of hit a wall with certain things. Like I don't have too many things on my hit list that I'm like pursuing. Everything that I do want super expensive, so I'm not really into it right now. So like right now, I've been really heavy on maybe more cards and action figures and stuff like that, and just kind of going that route. Like Garbage Pail Kids is always something I've been super into. So like been kind of going into the back catalog of those and completing some sets.
Those have never been a lot like wrestling figures and wrestling merch. Garbage Pail Kids have never been cheap. I remember when, like, as you know, when eBay was like first kind of launched with the collectibles, I was always looking for WWF t-shirts, and I was always looking for Garbage Pail Kids season 1, and they were always expensive. Like they were never a steal at all.
No, and it's wild because like I would go to the card shops by me, even like late '90s or whatever, and like stuff was still like kind of unattainable for me. It was like as a kid, like I was like I'm not going to spend like $100 for this or whatever. So you're right. I think for whatever reason, there's always been like such a following for that. And the 40th anniversary is coming up for Series 1, and I if anyone wants that, I would get it now. If you want to get your Series 1 sets in, because like that stuff is only going to go up, and every time there's a big anniversary, people get real excited for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something to Garbage Pail Kids too. I mean, that is definitely a classic, and not many. It's odd because Mad Balls had a minute.
Yeah,
Garbage Pail Kids kind of had a minute, but they haven't had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles moment or the Masters of the Universe moment where it just is. It reaches like a critical mass.
Right. I think that Garbage Pail Kids at their core just kind of like a little too weird to like ever get that mass appeal that they have. That's why I love them. But I think like there's just that one little like thing that's like keeping them from being like super mainstream again. But like I like that. Like I like that they're still kind of like desirable, rare in a sense, but still under the radar enough where like you could still get certain things.
They're like a cult favorite.
Yeah, they're like in the midst of doing a collab with Mad Balls, or they've been doing some mashup stuff.
I saw something at my comic book shop. There's like a Garbage Pail Kids. I think it is a Garbage Pail Kids Mad Balls comic book that's out.
Right. I think they've done comics, and I'm pretty sure they've done like a line of figures that have like mashed the two up.
Are you complete on GPK?
I am complete up until like the later stuff. Like again, I have to just like make rules. Like if it's a set I'm interested, I'm all in. Like they had the WWE collab where they had like a Macho Man card, an Ultimate Warrior card. And it was one of those limited sets that you could only get on Topps.com. So like stuff like that, like I'll poke my head in there and see like if it's something that I'm down with, I'm like, okay, I'll get that one. So, I think like a lot of this stuff like is so hard to be a completionist that like you have to make these rules, where in the past there was a finality to it. Like if you were into a toy line from the 80s, you can reasonably conclude it and finish it. Even though it's going to cost you a lot of money, there's an end game to it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's without going down the prototype alley or any of that stuff, which like, I don't really dive too deep into from the toy standpoint.
Did you go crazy during the pandemic on anything? Did you like really lean in on a certain property or a collectible?
Yeah, I think like the pandemic, I really dialed in on like weird oddball 80s Nike stuff. Like I was like old catalogs, like back catalog sneakers that people weren't super into. I actually started a collection of Nike Cortez. like this brings up a thing where I have a couple like lifelong collection goals where like I know it's going to take me like, I'll probably die before I ever finish it. One of them is getting every year release of the red, white, and blue, like the Forrest Gump colorway of Cortez's,
Yeah.
since 1972.
How many
So
have there been?
I'm still working on that, like finding out like a final answer. But
Yeah.
for the most part, they've come out almost every single year.
Really?
Or there has been a Cortez almost every single year, and I'm trying to like piece together every single release of that shoe. It's insane. Like I'll find some that are like totally different from a different factory. I'll find some that like the materials are different, even though they came out the same year. Some will have like a weird terry cloth liner for no reason, like just all sorts of stuff. So like, and then the ones in the 70s are very expensive. So I'm not a 70s shoe guy, but that's something that like kind of sparked my interest, and I've been slowly getting them as like I find good prices on them.
Why are the 70s ones in particular more desirable?
I think it's just they're originals. They're scarce. I think 70s runners like command a premium just in general because there is a cast of people that collect those like pretty hardcore. I'm not in that group, so
Right.
that's kind of like alien territory for me. So that's kind of out of my comfort zone for sneakers. So like it is a weird space for me to kind of dip into.
Yeah. And the Be True stuff I saw in your collection. You collected, you amassed not just the Nikes, but the school uniforms and the swag that they got, right?
Yeah. So that's another like like speaking of like lifelong collections. So like every school that was a part of the Be True to Your School group had a collection of merch. And there's a catalog where you can see all of these items. And my goal is to get every single item on that catalog.
Yeah.
That includes hats, socks, duffel bags, tank tops, track pants, button up or button pants, zipper. Like there's so many variations of these things. Like I literally find something new once a week.
Yeah.
And usually pretty cheap.
How do you measure that? Like, and I don't mean the size, how it fits. I mean, how do you put all of that together? Like, how are you able to get through your day with all of this stuff that you're out looking for?
It's maddening. It's like I'll stay up till like 3 a.m. just like browsing through all my like sites, like, and I don't sleep that much and I don't need it. I'm never like tired. So that's kind of like also my secret weapon is that like from the hours of like 1 to 3 a.m. I am on the hunt for this stuff. Like I'm like on all my sites, scrolling through, perusing, like, hunting things down, finding deals. So I kind of spend maybe an hour or two a day dedicated to hunting stuff. So that's how I kind of like, get all this stuff going.
Why do you think you do it?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
There's probably some weird existential like fulfillment that I'm like solving for some void that I don't have. But like honestly, like I'm a happy guy. I love my life, so it's not like I'm like filling some weird thing that like I'm not getting anywhere else. I think I genuinely like the hunt. I love the storytelling involved with all this stuff.
Yes.
I like things. I like products. I like seeing the process behind them. I like seeing the art behind them. I like seeing it from start to finish, how these things came. And I like seeing the history of it too.
Yes.
And I think that's why I like looking at the stuff from the past and seeing how it influenced what's out now. Because there is an arc and you can see like how all these things have informed each other. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know why I do it, but it makes me happy. So I think that's like, at the end of the day, like, if you do stuff that makes you happy, like, it is very fulfilling. And that's why I think also like, not being in this for the resale aspect of it and just following things and hunting things that genuinely are interesting to me has kind of kept the longevity going for me. Like I've heard a lot of friends or people that be like, oh, I'm done. Like I'm done with sneakers. It's too crazy now. Or like, oh, I don't want to collect anymore. But it's really like, it's a mindset and there's ways to kind of like take yourself out of the like chaos that is like the current state of things and find a different outlet in the collecting world. And like, I think I've been pretty flexible over the years with like dipping and dodging as trends happened. So that's kind of kept me going throughout this, this whole journey.
Yeah, there's a celebration quality to it.
Right. And it's like,
Celebrating these things, and you it's not it's not to get too grandiose, it's not a shrine, but you keep them around you for the vibe it gives you too. It's
totally.
the give and take,
I could pop open a box of sneakers that I bought 20 years ago, and it'll instantly take me back to like that time. And I can remember the mall I got them at, and at the place, and like, the weekend I spent with my friends there, and like all of this stuff. I could pick up like, Stinkor, and remember like all the like times with my brothers and like stuff like that. And like for any of this stuff, it really does like bring me back to all that stuff. And it's just like a connective tissue that I think is like really interesting and unique. So like in that sense, like, I hope that never goes away. And I hope I keep finding these things that like keep connecting. Like when I have a kid, I hope like he has those same type of like bonds and memories through all that stuff. So, I think it's important to have these like, it seems materialistic on the surface, but it truly is from a place of like interest and genuine like
Right.
love doing it.
Yeah. Do you have any that you could probably process negative traits that are like residuals from your personality type of a collector? Like, do you hoard anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in general you could consider this like a form of hoarding. Like,
but it's it's productive, it's proactive in a sense.
Right.
Like, do you not throw away your mail? Like, do you catch yourself doing things where it's like, oh, I actually have to check that because this isn't collecting. This is a negative aspect that could really affect my life.
So I'm pretty good with I'm actually very good with that. Like it's either should I collect or get it the hell out. Like I don't have any like weird, like I don't save like all of my like bottle caps because like for the hell, like, you know what I mean? Yes. Like, so I have very distinct rules for collecting, and like I've been very discreet, or not discreet, but very like, forward with doing that. I will say that like I probably have some form of OCD with keeping things pristine and perfect and meticulous. And I think that like comes with like keeping shoes dead stock, or like making sure they're clean, or like, there's that like if something got damaged that I have, I get this like super defeated feeling where I'm like, oh, that really sucks. Like I've had like, mint on card things where like the bubble will fall off and that'll like really hit me hard. I'll be like, oh, like, so I think there is some like compulsiveness involved with like the way I put all this together and the way I like have to keep everything like in a certain way, but not to the point where I feel like it's like super negatively impacted me. More so that it's like kind of enabled me to like do what I'm doing in a way.
So you're not on the hunt for anything right now, without divulging your eBay searches or what you might be bidding on now? Or is there anything that you're particularly fond of that you started searching for?
My eBay search, I have like all these like saved search listings. So that is like my North Star of all this stuff that I'm looking for. I'll read you a few of them. So one of the things that is like a very strange thing, it's a 1910 T210 Old Mill baseball card. My uncle, William Luyster, played for a team that was on these old tobacco cards in 1910.
Wow.
And I've been hunting for this card for 15 years now, trying to find it. Yeah. And like, I know I could see in PSA that one was graded. So I know at least like one is out there. I think there might even be more. There might have been one graded on Beckett. So that has been like one of my white whales, is finding this card of my uncle from 1910.
Wow.
I have one thing I've been super into is 1990 Simpsons. Just that was like the year the bottle popped and like they went crazy with all marketing and everything. So like I completed the Mattel line of figures, which is like in my mind like the quintessential Simpsons figure line.
Yeah, those are good. Those are good.
There's going to be a moment where people take a step back and like really appreciate Simpsons, and I think it's going to really start with that early like 1990 to pre-1990 stuff, when it was still like, I wouldn't say pure, but still had that level of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but there's a certain essence from that early Simpsons stuff that I'm really into. Like
Yeah.
there's
They didn't
these
know. They didn't know that like it was like a pop culture phenomena. It wasn't like a property, like how Simpsons has become like Star Wars or like Kiss in a
right.
way, where like they know exactly, like they just put their stuff on everything, and like the designs have a lot of intent. Where like when the first Simpsons wave came out, it was it was just kind of like merch. They were just kind of like sticking stuff everywhere.
Yeah, it's really weird. There's like a Marge like vanity set. There's like so many weird things. And I'm like, why did they make that? But I'm like, the artwork on it's actually really cool. Like
Yeah,
whoever got assigned to do that, like was like, all right, they rolled up their sleeves and went in on it.
they kind of didn't know what to do with it, but they knew to put it on stuff.
Right. It's weird. Like it was a merchandising juggernaut, but it was a really crappy one.
Yeah.
So it's so strange. Like there's like a Homer apron, grilling apron, where it's just like Homer on it. I forget. There's like some stupid phrase. It's just like it's all nonsense, but like it's almost like self-aware too. Like they knew they were shitting out merch and like
Yes.
okay with it.
Yes.
Which
they
I
didn't have they didn't have the licensing game down yet.
oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like now you see stuff at Simpsons. It's like the patterns are good, the products are okay. You know, like
right.
it's not so souvenir-y as it felt like
it's
when
very
it first came out.
formulaic now. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a formula now. Where in the past it's like just very scattered and like there's these NFL shirts that they have. That's like it's like Bart with like a Colts helmet and like hey man, like it's just like and there's a bunch of teams like that. And I've been like it's a weird combination of like why are the Simpsons making official NFL merch in 1990? But there's a bunch of them and like I've been finding like hunting those down and getting those. So it's like, you know, I think again that kind of ties in the sportswear and like, you know,
Yes.
the you know, just like the imagination that goes into just weird shit like that.
Do you wear the Seinfeld jacket?
I haven't. I would. I'm not like, especially. I have two of them, so I would definitely wear it. I used to work in Manhattan like every day, and like since the pandemic, I've been working from home, so that's kind of killed my whole game with like wearing a lot of my like vintage merch and wearing my stuff out. But you know, I think a nice crisp fall day, I could definitely see myself wearing that.
It's not out of the question, right? You
No,
would.
no. I think like most of the apparel is like fair game as long as it's not going to fall apart.
Right.
Like you know, I'll test it. I have a lot of like all over print wrestling shirts too.
Crazy.
From the night, they're awesome, and like you know, as you know, like the price kind of went insane on those. I'll pull out a couple of them if I have them.
They went from expensive to insane, and it's the same with it's the same with comic book T-shirts. They went from expensive to insane, and it's probably like that's dope.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. Like HBK, there's glitter print all over it.
Wow, and it's WWF. That's great.
Right, it's a vintage WWF. This is I think it was '94. But which is like the new gen era of WWF is like my favorite. That is when I was like like I started watching it like at the end of the early Hogan era in like 90 or 91, like kind of watching Hulkamania fizzle, and like I was always a Bret Hart guy.
Yes.
Hated Shawn Michaels, but ironically, I'm showing you two Shawn Michaels shirts. This is a really dope the Two Dudes with Attitude shirt.
That's a good one. That's a real good one.
Just like really cool graphics, just really well done. It's totally wonky and wild, but like, you know, that's like kind of the stuff I'm after. I have this. This is some like baby made. I don't know why they made this, but it's like for a tiny little kid, Agassi challenge court outfit.
I've never seen the baby stuff.
I am pretty sure this is just a sample, because it's like there's no like tag inside. This is just completely handmade. So I think this was a sample to like, you know, just show what it could look like for a kid. But this is one of my weirdo prized possessions that like,
Those
again,
are cool.
There's no value to it. Like no one knows this even exists, but like I like it and it's awesome.
I still have my original Agassi shorts. Like I have purple and I have those pink. The original.
Oh, yeah. That is another thing that just like captured my imagination and just like, you know, I've been collecting these Agassi headbands for decades now. Like this was one of my original eBay saved searches was Nike Agassi headband.
Yeah.
So anytime I would see one, I would basically buy it. So I have dozens and dozens of these in almost every color that they've ever made. Every once in a while, I'll see one where I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't know they made that. And I'll like immediately get it. But those days are becoming few and far between. Like I'm pretty sure I have every color. There might be one or two that I don't have.
And I imagine you have all the Tech Challenge sneakers, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I have every retro, especially the lava. I have every retro of the lava since it came out, and like a couple pairs of the original. I have the pixel colorway of the originals. I have two pairs of those from 1990. And then obviously all the retros. So just like Tech Challenges are a big, big sneaker for me, and like something that's like a core part of my collection.
That one hits that's a very hot area for Nike. People go, they've always gone crazy for the Agassi stuff. Even like early Nike talk, ever since like sneaker collecting like formed, Agassi has really been in that nucleus. You have Jordan, yes, you have Jordan. Jordan's everything. Jordan is the culture, but you have Agassi too, and the people are intense about collecting the Agassi stuff.
And I like that's one of those things on Nike Talk that I remember. I think it was Retro Kid. He had like a circle of Agassiz, or he had this like big display of Tech Challenges, and I was like, holy shit! Like I want to do that. Like I want to start like going back and hunting this stuff. And like it was guys like that and people on Nike Talk that kind of like along with eBay opened my mind up to like you don't have to just go to the mall and hunt through that. Like there's other stuff to get out there.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like obviously Jordan like elevated like sneakers and just like, you know, sportswear and collecting in general, but it was the Bo Jacksons, the Andre Agassi's, the Charles Barkley's, those like, you know, ancillary characters that like built up Nike and built up sportswear and, you know, built up storytelling through apparel. Like they were superheroes. Like Andre Agassi, like with his fluttering mullet and like, you know,
a wig. It was a wig.
I know. Yeah. And like, but like he was like a larger than life character.
Yes.
Like he looked like a superhero. Like
yes.
Bo Jackson looked like a superhero. And yes. I think like, yeah, I mean, I guess that stuff still exists today, but the way it was covered back then and the way it was like magnified and like almost curated in a way by the brands, by the media.
By the way, dude, again, with like marketing in the same way that like He-Man stuff, like you had like David Fincher and Weeden Kennedy, like blowing out amazing commercials too, larger than life ads, the designs, but Agassi in particular, like the clothes were dope. The colors were perfect. You know, like you see vintage Jordan stuff and yes, it's so cool. And it's so muscular and tough looking and sharp. But then you look at the Agassi stuff and that stuff is just off the wall. Like even to this day, you put that stuff on, you put those shorts on with the spandex underneath, you're still looking wild.
Oh yeah, no, people are going to look at you and that's like, you know, a 30-year-old look where like it still feels like edgy.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the man behind, like Andre Agassi brought that to life. Like, you know,
hit the ball as loud as you can sort of stuff.
Right. And like, you know, you could throw that apparel on other Nike athletes and it didn't hit as hard. No. Like, you know, like, so it was like the storytelling with him, with his like struggles and championships.
Yeah.
And, you know, like him exuding all of that. So like, I think that authenticity really lent itself and like, obviously Nike capitalized on it. And like, we're still talking about these people to this day.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I don't know if there's going to be like, obviously there's LeBron James and Kobe and like those core athletes that, you know, we'll remember, but it's different. I think everyone is so micro analyzed and covered in such a almost like vapid, just not as curated as it was back then. So you're not getting the story that we were with all of these larger than life characters. You're getting it told through 50,000 scattered voices of varying opinions. And it is different.
Yeah. You're touching on a good point. Also like the idea of, I feel like that time, that like late 80s, early 90s, like sneaker, that boom of the design, the Tinker Hatfield era, they were really going for something different. They were really going for something wild. They weren't going for a retro appeal like a lot of these newer pro models harken back to. They were visionaries looking forward into what sportswear could be, trying to raise, get people wild about the shoes that their players were coming onto the court wearing. They were really pushing the envelope, and the commercials and marketing had a lot to it, but the athletes were also delivering, which is where that argument doesn't really have much ground, that it was all marketing and commercials. But the design, specifically the sneaker design of what Tinker and company were doing, they were just, I don't think that was just, I don't think that that's normal. Like, and it shows, like, it's not typical, and it shows because those sneakers were still going crazy for if they release. Like if Agassi stuff releases, I mean, it doesn't really sell out. The last round that they released didn't really sell out, like all the gear and stuff, but it's not around anymore. And
right, no, I mean, that's all cleared out by now. And
right,
you know, I mean, to be able to sell a neon palette, like crazy retro style today like that, just speaks to the volumes of like,
yes,
you know, the legacy that left.
And what they were doing, like the tip that they were on, like the wave that they were riding at that time. Very visionary, very futuristic, very forward thinking. I mean, you remember the first time you saw like the Jordan 5 and then the Jordan 6, that was crazy. The first time you saw the Tech Challenge, I think it was the 4, the one after the lava one that had the fire tennis ball on the back.
Oh, the neon. Those are the 3s. Yeah, I have a pair stowed away somewhere.
But then the 4s with like the tie-dye on the back, like those were wild, dude.
Right. The 4s are actually my favorite.
Are they ever going to be retro? Do you think they're ever going to come out again?
So they came out a couple years ago, but they weren't released in the States, and they had like a really wonky release, and it kind of annoyed everyone. And then like that's kind of been it. And I really hope they give them like a proper like retro run, because that shoe is really awesome, and like, you know, it needs its day in the sun again, because I think that'll sell really well. It
has such a streetwear appeal. Like the 3s kind of don't. They're more. I mean, they don't look great with anything besides shorts or sweatpants or anything.
Yeah, I agree. The 3s are probably the toughest to pull off in like, you know, modern day apparel.
Yeah.
The 4s, and funny enough, the 4s came out in 2000 as a retro. And bombed.
Of course.
I have a pair of them that were like marked all the way down to $20. Like if you go back to old Eastbays in the early 2000s, you'll see the 4s like just slashed because no one wanted them. And
same with the Jordans too. Well, 2000 probably not, but didn't Jordan 1, the first retro, sit?
Yeah, the first run of retros, like you know, you could find them. You could walk into shops like and literally have those slashed down to, people say, $20 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
a little bit before my collecting time. I do have a bunch of pairs of those that I've picked up over the years, just because like, yeah, it's definitely like a staple in my collection. And you know, having a Jordan 1 that, again, it's not going to fall apart.
Yeah,
the box is beautiful. It's just a really nicely done shoe. So again, like thinking about like the types of sneakers that have that longevity that you'd want to collect. But, you know, retro really didn't catch on until like the late 90s, early 2000s, when the Jordan 4s came out. That lit a spark, and then people started to take notice. I remember distinctly being at Toys R Us when the first run of the Jordan 4s came out. The first retro run of the Jordan 4s. I remember this guy walked up to me. I was in the Star Wars aisle, believe it or not. And he had the retro 4s on with the shirt. And I was like, where the hell did this come from? Because I didn't know at the time that those were coming out.
Yeah.
And it's like my like jaw hit the floor, because like I was like immediately like, I have to get those. I have to find them. Like just like completely captivated by that. And I think that's the power of like the element of surprise, and not having these things just so like plastered and just so easy to figure out.
Yeah, the whole "where did you get those" phenomena is dead. Is there any aspect of your collection that you're too far down the rabbit hole of to give up, so it's kind of like a burden for you now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, the be true to your school thing. Like I have like so much of that crap, and like I am just in it, and like I like, it's one of those things where there isn't even a defined finish line. So it's like I was saying before, every time I think I know everything that came out, I'll find something new where I'm like, okay, well now I have to find all this. So I recently have been finding the Be True to Your School stuff with the names on the side of the sleeves, which
Oh no.
I knew existed, but I didn't know how much stuff had it, and apparently a lot of it does. So
Man.
that's another set of things and another like variant of things to hunt. So it's one of those goals where it's like kind of unobtainable, but also fun in the chase. Which like I
Yes.
guess like I love the chase. Like I have to have something to kind of chase after. So this is a very cheap, easy thing to do because a lot of the stuff I get from the Be True to Your School collection, I get for like $20, $30. Some of
Oh,
the
okay.
so I won't give away my secrets on how I do that because like I've had people message me when I post stuff on that, being like, "Hey, I know you like this. I've been like," it's almost like people start to try to sell me things that I'm after if I show them. So I kind of get wary about that. But again, it's all fair game.
For sure. No, but I get it. Like you don't want the cat out of the bag. If you found something that you're really into and you're getting a good price on it and it's fulfilling, why would you want to blow it up? Which
Right.
which leads me to my next question is if you were just if you were if you came to the realization in 2022 that like, oh, I think I want to collect something. I think I want to get into something. What would that be? What would
Oh,
be what would be the hot thing for you if you didn't have the sneakers, if you didn't have the toys, if you had nothing, but you had the inclination of like, you know what, I just moved into a new place and I want to start a collection of something. Where do you
right.
think you would go on a
Like
blank slate?
blank slate. Like,
Yeah.
are we talking things I could get in the store or things that I could get on eBay? Like, is there
Let's start on eBay.
okay, blank slate, need to start collecting. It would have to be wrestling. I think like I would have to start with wrestling something. Um, and I mean, I have them all, but like the thrill of getting the WWF Hasbro line, like, is such a good memory to me. I would love to have that feeling of like rediscovering those and just like collecting them again with a purpose.
Yeah.
So I think that would be like my first start to any like filling a blank slate would be bringing that collection into it.
Mm-hmm. And what about stuff bought from stores?
You know what? If I had nothing else and I didn't have my stupid rules, I really do like the NECA turtle stuff.
Yes.
It's really nice. It's like very nicely done. Like they have different ranges, so they have the cartoon, they have the video game stuff, they have the movie stuff, and like it's all really well done. So I think if like I had the bandwidth to get into that, I think that would be a really great like new collection to
Yeah.
start.
You're smart for not getting into that deep of stuff, and it's a good rule to have because there's so
It's
much stuff that companies are just totally playing the game and pulling the strings of collectors with what they're releasing. It's almost criminal, like it's not. It's very manipulative.
they're manipulating the guys like me and you from an era where like you were craving these things. You were like, I wish there was more. I wish they made this character. I wish they made that character. And then you have stuff like Reaction making things in the format that like hits that little like dopamine chord in your brain where it's like, ooh, like this is the style of a guy I'd want back in the
Mm-hmm.
80s or not. And like that's their secret formula, and I get it, but like I have to like take a step back and be like, no, like this
Uh-huh.
isn't the thing that I went after, and like this is like not a fraud, but like it's a new thing that like is great for people who are into that. But like I have these things, like
Mm-hmm.
I have a million Ninja Turtles, like I have a million like different figures in very similar formats. So it's like you almost have to take a step back and like kind of like correct yourself. And I say that, but I also buy retro sneakers of a sneaker I have like 5 iterations of. So I'm completely talking out of both sides of my mouth.
Yeah, that's kind of the paradox of being a collector. Rules apply in one area, but they don't in another. I mean,
Right.
I totally get it.
I think for the sneakers, for me, it's like the peace of mind that like I have a fresh version that I could in theory wear if I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And like, with every model that comes out, like the Jordan 3s, like the white cements are coming out this year again. Like I have every version of that aside from the 1988. So I have the first retro of them. I have the 2003 retro of them. I have the 2011 retro of them. I have the 2000, was it 12, and then they had another one with like a free throw line imprint on the bottom of them that came a couple years after that. So I have like 5 or 6 versions of that shoe. I'm absolutely going to buy it again.
Yeah. It's actually a very interesting way of thinking about time, specifically through Nikes and through sneakers and through retros, all the different models and all the re-releases that go through time. Putting them all together really does afford a context that you don't get just by, holding whatever the newest retro is. When you have, and even if they're dirty or whatever, lined up, it's a real chronicle of time.
Absolutely. And I could tell you, like, I could hold the 1994 version and look at the materials and the way it was made and the nuances of it. Then I could look at the 2003 version and say, okay, they added a Jumpman on the back because at the time they were moving away from the Nike Air branding on them. Mm-hmm. But the quality on the 2003 pair is immeasurably better than the 2011 pair, which is one of the worst eras of sneakers from Nike, period. Almost everything from, I'd say, like 2006 to about 2013, 2014, the paint would crack and peel regardless of age. Like it would just immediately do it out of the box. All of the leather was plasticky. The fit was just off. So there was a good chunk of time where like most of Nike retros were really poorly made and really poorly executed. And I was like fading away. Like I was like, I don't know how much more of this shit I could buy, because like it was just so disappointing to open the box and see them made in that way. And they completely, flipped back to, I'd say, like acceptable quality, if not really good for most of their stuff. But yeah, I think it did take like Yeezy and Adidas and competition and brands that were actually putting some love into their product to get Nike to kind of come correct and come back around and making good stuff. But I think to your point, I love to look at all the sneakers in that context. And I love to have that 2011 pair next to the 2003 pair and next to that retro that's going to come out this year, and be able to look at them all and see that story of production and like, kind of like look and feel at the way these things were made over the years. Even though it's the same shoe, not one of those two are the same if you look at them all up.
Have there been any like museum exhibits of this sort of thing where you see all of them lined up? Not just like, oh, here's a game worn pair of this, that, or the other, or, here's a production, the first model off the assembly line. I mean, one where it's really comprehensive. Each retro, like has that been around at all?
Yeah, there's been a few like roadshow-esque museums where they're like pop-ups. Like I think there was one in Brooklyn a few years back. Right now at Nike, I think it's Dover. I could be wrong. There's like a curated sneaker section of like old school sneakers with memorabilia, and all these cool like just like old ephemera like attached to it on these like pegboards. So it looks like an old like Nike pegboard setup, and it's really cool. But there's this place that I don't know if you've ever heard of Shoeseum.
Yes,
this guy, Jordan Geller, I think it was Vegas. Again, I could be wrong, but he had an actual place with all of these sneakers and in depth, and had all the different models together. And he literally set them up like telling stories, like would have like a pair of Hulk sneakers with like a toy of the Hulk next to it, showing the context to it. Yeah. So he really did like go all out and, tell those stories and have an actual museum that you could go in and walk through. You could look it up on YouTube. There's a lot of different like walkthroughs and like different shows have covered it, and it's really cool.
It's, Nikes are very much a American artifact in a way. Like when all this is said and done and we're years out of it and we're old and not on the planet anymore and new generations pass over and over, Nikes are still going to be around. I wonder if Jordan will ever go out of style, but Air Jordans are, I mean, that's just Americana. It's become so much bigger than just a sneaker.
Oh yeah, and a few years ago there was like a thing where like, oh, people are only gonna know Jordan through the crying meme, or only like kids are gonna start to forget about who Michael Jordan is. And then The Last Dance came out, and I have very few times in my life have I seen an explosion of something that I'm interested in happen almost instantaneously due to a specific thing.
Yeah.
And when that documentary came out during the pandemic, everything with Jordan's name attached to it went through the roof. His rookie cards, the Jordan, like 85 Jordan 1s, anything that was vintage or like somewhat desirable with his name attached to it exploded. And like, that it says a lot about him. It says a lot about, I guess, like all of the stuff with his name attached to it, like these indelible products. But it also just kind of gives you, like, if people have the right context to these things and these legends perpetuate and these stories continue on, people are still going to be interested in it. It's like people needed, in a way, to be reminded of how fucking awesome Jordan was.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's kind of like Ninja Turtles. Like, these stories keep getting retold, and they're being retold through different iterations. Master of the Universe just had a new series out that retold that story. So as long as people are still talking about these stories and they're still like in the public eye, I don't see any of this stuff going away. Like, no. Because like now my kids are going to be like they're going to be born into this, and I'm going to show them this. And like, there's like a life cycle to it that's just going to keep going, unless, like, who knows? Like, I don't know. I just don't see an end to some of these bigger properties.
TMNT and Motu are definitely in the Americana artifact lexicon, absolutely, for sure. And you can see the passage of time. Not so much Masters, because they went away for a little bit, right? Like, Masters hasn't been as constant as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has, right? Like, Ninja Turtles has never gone away.
Yeah, Ninja Turtles, like, I would say 97-ish was like a lull for them, like into the early 2000s. But I think it was 2002 that knew they had like a reboot of the cartoon.
Okay.
That was awesome. Like, I connected with my little brother on that.
Yeah, that
was a big thing where we watched that together. I got reinvested in that toy line with him, and we collected all of those. And that's straight up
indie. Like, the Turtles thing is so fascinating to me, because like it was just two indie dudes. Like, there was no company push behind it. No one was asking for Ninja Turtles at the time. When I was, it was in the comic shops when I was a kid, and it was bloody and it was black and white. It was not. If you would have told me that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would have endured and been like $1 billion global franchise, I would have been like, no, there's no way, you're crazy. But
and like, even the first movie, like, to this day, that's one of my favorite movies. But like, you wouldn't make that movie now for kids.
I showed that to my daughter. She couldn't stand it.
It's so funny to me, because like, I guess like it's one of those things where like, if you were there and like, we're a part of that kind of movement, it like really sticks with you. But like, I don't know, like, that to me is like the perfect story for them in that format of like Jim Henson Muppets, like darker, grittier, still kind of lighthearted when it needed to be. Like,
directed by Steve Barron, who also directed Billie Jean, the music video for Michael Jackson.
Really?
Big music video director. Yeah,
Steve Barron. Didn't know that.
Yeah. I saw Ninja Turtles in the theater. I recently watched it again with my daughter. It was very dark, like in terms of the light, not the content. The lighting is just very dark. You can't really see much, for good reason. I mean, they had to obscure the costumes, but the design of the costumes and the puppeteering is fantastic. Still, it holds up.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Like, it legitimately still feels like a quality movie where like, the budget wasn't crazy back then. And like, it was just like literally animatronics and some puppeteering and some Jim Henson magic.
But my daughter, who's like, she's raised on, I mean, we started her on 2D drawn movies, like the OG Disney stuff. Like, we didn't get her into the CGI stuff right away.
Yeah.
But, she's ramped up to that, and old effects to her are so bobo. Like, she has no tolerance for it whatsoever. Maybe one day.
What about like Star Wars? Is that like, if she saw A New Hope, would that like?
I tried, dude. She hates it.
Really?
I even thought to start it with what is it? 789 with Rey, because I figured, it's a girl, she might be into it, because Star Wars is very Luke Skywalker. I mean, you have Leia, but like, she's kind of in the background. It's more a boy's story. So I figured, okay, so maybe if she saw a girl Jedi, she'd be more into it. Nope.
Wow.
She's not even into the land speeder chase in Jedi. Like, I just fast forwarded just to show her that, and she
Yeah,
still wasn't
I was
having it.
gonna say no to the Ewoks. Can't get down with them.
No, and
Uh,
that's fine. I don't want to push it, but
yeah, I think that's something I'm gonna have to come to grips with is if my kid doesn't like any of this stuff, which I am totally okay with that.
yeah.
For two reasons. One, there's going to be a point where I'm going to have to stop them from either playing with this stuff
Hmm.
or like coming down into the basement with his friends and like, oh, my dad has all these things. Let's like check it all out. Like, it's the thing. Like, I'm going to have to come to terms with that. And like,
Hmm.
we're around that one way or the other. So I've been thinking about that. But the other is like, I truly do like hope that I can bond with him with this stuff and like, be able to like, enjoy these things and kind of pass them on if he
It
wants
sticks.
to.
There's some stuff. There's some stuff that like where we connect with. But I'm also all about like connecting with what she likes. Like, what is she into? So I put myself into the mode of being interested in her stuff rather than me being like, you're gonna like this and you're gonna like that and you're gonna wear
Right.
this shirt and you're gonna have these. I mean, I get her J's and I get her little things that are callbacks that she likes. Some stuff I show her, she's like, I don't like that. But like I try to kind of play her game just because like I see a lot of parents out there like the kid's wearing an outfit and like that kid didn't pick out that outfit. Like
Right. Yeah.
that.
I do not want to be the dad who's using his kid as a prop on Instagram to show
No.
off like his thing. Like that is not my style. That's not my goal. I do want them to explore the world and kind of figure all this stuff out. Cause like that's what I had, like I guess through osmosis, like got a lot of it from my brothers, but truly like all the sneaker stuff and all the other things, it was like for me exploring it and like, seeking it out and kind of like, digging back all these layers. So yeah, there's more tools to do that, and I'm sure there'll be even more when he's old enough. So there's definitely going to be like a lot of opportunity to kind of figure all this weird crazy shit out.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like it's for generations like ours, we had to kind of build it. In other words, like sneaker collecting was a very niche thing that was built on passion.
Right.
Toy collecting was a very niche thing that was built on passion. There's a reason why everybody's hot on Ninja Turtles and kind of cool with Thundercats, kind of cool with Silverhawks. There's a reason that TMNT kind of bubbled to the surface. And that's not a corporate push. That's just a generation's passions. So it's interesting to see the things that, because there was nonstop product back then. So many toy lines, so many different sneakers. Nikes are specific because I don't even know why. Probably the athletes and the total package of the design, like we were talking about, like, but down to the fact that they're dope shoes. But like, there's a reason why it's Turtles and Motu and not the other, Brave Star or like, I don't know. I would have to really dig for. I mean, like
I have a lot of oddball toy collections, like Food Fighters. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Like, so that's a product of like, again, like being one of seven. Like sometimes having to shop at the reduced aisle in Toys R Us, and they were like, $1 or $2, and like, all right, sweet, I'm gonna get all the Food Fighters.
Right.
Or there's another toy line called Barnyard Commandos, and I have all of them. So it's like weird shit like that. Like no one cares about them, but like if you have the Food Fighter, there's the donut, and there's a special one that he has alternate cherry frosting on it. That's like a $500 figure on cards.
Oh wow! You mess with Mask at all? You know that toy line Mask?
My older brother did. He had like I distinctly remember in our basement there's a cardboard box that said Mask Pat, and I wasn't allowed to touch it. And my brother Pat had things that I really wanted to get my hands on, and for whatever reason, it was always like off limits. Like he had a drawer of Garbage Pail Kids, and I would go into his room and like beg him to just let me look at them, and he would always say no. And that made me want to get them. That made me like want to get my own collection and want to get this. So like just thinking back at all this stuff and like all the connections that they have. It does start from stuff like that.
Yeah. Mask, man, I've been one of my rules is no toys at the moment. I'm a recovering Japanese vinyl toy collector. Okay. So like I have my rule is no toys just because like if I have money for toys I'm going to buy them for my kid. but also
Right.
like there's so many toys around where I live. Like there's so many toys in my home that are hers that if I added art toys, it wouldn't. The vision would not be there. It would not click. It would just look like more clutter. There would be
Yeah.
no juxtaposition. Like what's cool about collecting toys is the juxtaposition between high and low. You have nice furniture. You have like coffee. Like prints on the wall, and then you have action figures that are kind of kitschy. Like that's kind of what's cool about collecting action figures. If you're around toys, if toys are everywhere and it's all kid stuff everywhere, and then you have a really cool OG mask toy on a bookshelf, it's not gonna hit. It's not gonna hit right. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like kind of out of sort. It's just like not in context that you want it to be.
It's just more clutter, right? There's not that juxtaposition, which is so great about collecting toys. But what I was getting at was if I did delve down that dark hole of collecting retro toys, it would be Mask.
I get it. They are awesome, and like I've looked at them and I played with them, and like they turned into, or they like some of them did like
expanded out. They became different vehicles.
And they like all of the characters literally had masks, right? Yeah. That was like, again, like just a really cool imaginative toy line. Just awesome colors on them. I remember my brother Pat also had like almost every GI Joe.
Another one that endured. But like why? But like there was something that the generations that came up with that stuff did to kind of cement them in. Like no one's talking about Mask. No one's talking about Captain Power. No one's talking about so many of these other toys that were around. There's something, I guess there's that something, a little extra mojo, that little extra kind of cultural spell that some of these things have, like Ninja Turtles,
I think
like
all
He-Man.
Ones, if you go GI Joe, Turtles, He-Man, they all had big time cartoons.
Yes.
They all had merch galore. They all had the marketing juggernaut behind them. And the toys were all great. Like like they were all amazing toy lines with great accessories, great vehicles, and longevity.
Yeah.
So I think all that together is what's going to make these things be the first one you go after if you collect something. And I think when you look at toy lines, usually the most valuable are series 1, because everyone wants to start from the beginning or get like that one guy from series 1, or it's usually the last series where everyone stopped. And the production run usually got cut down too, because stores weren't investing or didn't want a large run of them.
Yeah.
So like WWF Hasbro, the Green Card series is super, super valuable because they weren't available everywhere. There's super limited production. And if you go up and down every toy line, usually the last line in them is pretty scarce.
That's so interesting because you're so right. It's so true. The last wave of figures for any toy, they're usually there's the heavy drop off, and you can't for some reason you can't find them. It's so true.
If you look at the RGB line, the glow in the dark ones are worth a fortune now. And that was the last series. Like they stopped making them after that. And again, it's just the same deal.
Are you into GI Joe, or that's a no-no?
It's weird because like I think my oldest brother Pat, who's 10 years older than me, I didn't get into his stuff as much, and I think it might have been because he wouldn't let me play with any of it. My brother Dan, who's 5 years older than me, we like all of the same stuff. Like he's big on Ghostbusters, I'm big on Ghostbusters, Turtles, like so. I collected through him, and like we both had our own competing collections growing up, which is like. Looking back at it was very dumb because we like didn't have that much money, and we probably should have combined our resources, which we eventually did for the WWF Hasbro figures, because those were hard enough to get. We were like, all right, let's allied powers here and just like hunt together. So that was our first combined collection.
That's sweet. I like that.
Yeah,
it brought you two together in a way. I like that.
We go to flea markets like once every couple of weeks. And like we'll always like kind of hunt the same stuff, and like we'll always get a kick out of seeing like a Hasbro on a table for like $10 or something like that. So still to this day, all of that stuff is still like in our world. Yeah.
Show me that Ghostbusters box that you have next to you. I've been eyeballing that this whole time.
So this is the Green Ghost. I honestly don't know why they don't just call him Slimer on the box.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Green Ghost with goop. So he comes with ectoplasm. Like if you ever see the actual slime on eBay, that's sealed, it goes for hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
Like so, people are paying hundreds of bucks for Ghostbusters slime. That used to be my consolation prize when I'd go to Toys R Us and I couldn't afford a figure.
Get some slime.
Yeah, I just get a can of slime. Same with turtles. Like if they didn't have anyone you needed, or like you couldn't for whatever reason get a toy, you just get some mutagen and like call it a day.
What is that? Like a soft kind of gel sort of plasticky Slimer?
Yeah, so he's like more soft. I forget, it's probably like a vinyl material, and he has this plastic thing on the back of him where you load up the slime, you put it into him, and it'll like ooze out of his mouth.
That's killer.
And
you'll
like,
never take that out of the box, right? The box is so nice.
This is not coming out of the box, and this is actually very hard to find in the box. I have a version outside of the box, and I have a bunch of RGB outside of the box. I started to go down the road of collecting them mint on card, and I had to stop. I was like this is too much, and it's just like wasn't hitting it for me. So like I stopped. But it's funny, like talking about the slime, that like all of the big toy lines also had slime. I guess Joe really didn't. But MOTU had the slime pit. Ghostbusters, all about that, ectoplasm. And Turtles, almost everything had the ooze.
It was very cool. The slime was awesome. It was gross, just gross enough. It felt squishy, and you could like really give your toys the business with some slime.
Like if you think about like Muckman and Joe Eyeball, like the turtle figure, like that toy is probably my favorite figure, like period. Up and down any toy line. Yeah. Like I just remember staring at that thing and looking at every nook and cranny of him, and like seeing like they sculpted like a lobster on him, and they sculpted like there's so many weird details.
By hand too, right? It was some person by hand. They drew it out and did it by hand. Amazing.
That was all Werner's studio, I think, who did the Playmates line, which is like, if you look at their portfolio, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And they were in line for the Star Wars, or they made a pitch for the Star Wars line that Kenner reclaimed and went forward, or Hasbro or whatever. That moved forward with it. But if you could look up their mock-ups for it, and they're incredible.
Cool.
There's a few different versions of like, I think Luke in his X-Wing pilot gear, and I think they did like a Leia and a C-3PO, and they're really, really well done.
Nice. All right, Kevin, final question. Okay.
All right.
Do you wear Jordans with Jumpman on the back?
I used to out of necessity, because that's all I could. I prefer not to now. If I can get away with it, I will wear Nike Air all day. Like that is the way it was meant to be. That is the way it was designed by Tinker. So they've fortunately redone all of them now.
Yeah.
Almost. There's a couple that haven't come back out yet. The Fire Red 3s are coming back out with the Nike Air on the back. I'm definitely going to get 2 or 3 pairs of those. I'm going to wear the hell out of one pair. So yeah, it's got to be Nike Air on the back.